Hello, it's me, Will Webb, here with a loud fan buzzing away in the corner, so if you can hear that, my apologies, but it is boiling hot in the UK. And so I'm here today to talk about our movie club pick for August, which is the suitably searing Night of the Hunter, a really classic black and white thriller, I suppose you'd call it now, but I don't think that really existed at the time in the same way. We've got about, I don't know, half an hour or so to talk about this really powerful movie. So it makes sense to start off by setting the scene, really. It's the first film and the only film from an actor called Charles Laughton, who was a really big actor at the time. He was in Hitchcock movies and stuff like that. And this is his first attempt to make a movie. Now, if you don't know anything about the film, it basically concerns a self-appointed preacher called Harry Powell, the Reverend Harry Powell, who is a con man, really, more than he's a preacher. He's trying to sell a sort of view of morality while also completely ignoring it himself. He ends up sharing a cell with Ben Harper, who is a kind of bad guy who killed a dude over a couple of $1,000 and then told his children, his little kids at the time, where that money was hidden. So, once this guy gets executed and Harry gets out of jail, he goes to the town and starts striking up a relationship with the kind of God-fearing mother of these kids, who, as we've just talked about, has already got a bit of a penchant for falling for the bad kind of dudes. So that's the story of Night of the Hunter in a rough kind of description. What's notable about the film is that it then follows, basically Harry kills Willa, spoilers, pretty early in the film's runtime. It's like the halfway point, and then goes after the kids in order to get hold of the money that he knows that they know where it's stashed, basically. The film has this incredibly distinctive visual style to it. It's shot in this quite high contrast black and white. Some of it was shot at the time then with a new stock film developed by Kodak called Tri-X, which is a really contrasty black and white stock. And it's shot by a cinematographer who had done a lot of really famous movies. He did The Magnificent Ambersons with Orson Welles, and his name was Stanley Cortez. So Laughton, being an actor, didn't really know anything about how to make a movie, I suppose, and he ended up going around Cortez's house, apparently. Sorry, I sort my massive hair here. He ended up going around Cortez's house to find out more about lenses, lights, film stocks, that kind of stuff. And I think together, along with the screenplay, they ended up building this kind of surreal world. Laughton was really influenced by silent cinema, by expressionist cinema in particular, German expressionism, like movies like The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, The Eyes of Dr. Mabuse, and The Blue Angel, things like that. And so after studying those movies, he wanted to incorporate elements from those into his film. So you get these surreal translations of some stuff that is in the script. The script, it should be noted, was originally turned in at 293 pages, which is incredibly long. That would usually, in Hollywood terms, mean a movie of about 4 to 5 hours. Usually a Hollywood script is about 120 pages. That would be a 2-hour to 90-minute screenplay. So Laughton took a lot of elements from that, like the opening visual of these children's faces kind of superimposed in the sky, and made these surreal moments. There's a lot of kind of picture-in-picture effects like that. There's some classic deep focus and kind of clever use of impressionistic lighting throughout the film. But also there's the more showy stuff, like that famous riverside sequence where you can see Harry on a miniature horse in the distance. That was all done with miniatures. And there was also the classic underwater moment where you find out what happened to Willa after all. There's also some interesting elements like having isolated bits of set here and there, neon lights not attached to a building, white picket fences not around a house, that kind of thing. And apparently the idea behind that was to emulate this impressionistic view of the world that children have. So that's Night of the Hunter, with this incredibly distinctive look, and at the centre of it, really, a very powerful performance from Robert Mitchum, who turns in a, dare I say it, sexy turn as this horrible preacher con man. And really the film is about him manipulating Willa, sort of trying to manipulate the children, and then ultimately getting his comeuppance there. And it's to Laughton's credit that that really grim story has stuck around in pop culture. I first heard of this film through a reference in The Simpsons, where because the Simpsons characters have only 3 fingers on each hand, I think it's Sideshow Bob has to have L, U with an umlaut, and then V, like Louvre and hat, on his other fingers to do the love and hate thing that Robert Mitchum's character has in this. And I think what's clever about the film too is that it has a bit of a grim sense of humour to it. There's stuff like when he starts doing the love and hate fighting each other speech near the end of the film, and the lady just cuts him out immediately, tells him to stop talking. That kind of stuff is really, really contributes to a modern feeling in the film. Surprisingly, for something that's shot in black and white film and has these kind of impressionistic silent film touches to it, it has this incredibly modern feel, I think. And part of that is the impressionistic visual approach to the movie, all those split screens and stuff, but part of it is that really scintillating character work, which doesn't feel mannered at all in the way that a lot of movies of the era do. So that is the kind of story of the Night of the Hunter and why it's such a popular movie. But of course, the film wasn't popular when it first came out. So I can tell you a little bit about I've told you a little bit about making the film, but I should tell you that it was not a success with anyone, really, when it came out. In fact, Charles Laughton was so upset by the reception that the film had that he actually never made a film again. And I don't think people would have been giving him the money to do it otherwise. It was a little bit hurt by what was considered to be anti-Christian messages in it, because the main character is this nasty, self-appointed preacher, and I think people have really, I think Laughton and co. really try to make it clear that he is self-appointed, that he's not really a Christian, he's just abusing the style of it. But I don't know if that's exactly something that the Legion of Decency, which gave the film a low score because it degraded marriage, I don't know if that's something that they would have gone with. I think they would have liked that either. But then what happened after the film's release, after a long period of time, is that it started to become popular as a kind of cult classic. About 15 years after its release, in the 1970s, when film criticism was getting bigger, people started to really praise the movie. And in fact, Roger Ebert wrote about the film in the 1990s. It was one of the most frightening of movies, with one of the most unforgettable of villains, and on both of those scores, it holds up well after 4 decades. So you can see that the film has a lasting pop cultural impact, and it's something that even gets referenced in other movies. It gets referenced in The Simpsons, it's referenced in Do the Right Thing. It's an important film, I'd say, as well, and that's surprising considering how badly it was received at the time that it came out. Universal is apparently working on a remake. I fucking hope that never happens. They've been threatening to make a remake for a while, but you can hope and pray that no one ever does it. Doesn't sound like it'd be good, does it? So there we have it, Night of the Hunter, and I would love to find out what you think about the film in the comments. By which I mean here, because it's a live stream, in the chat. Let's talk in the chat. What do you think of Night of the Hunter? Oh, I've had a webcam mishap. There we go. So I think the chat is a little empty. So I'm going to talk about the film. In fact, you know what? Fuck the movie. Let's talk about something else. I'm going to talk a little bit, and then I'm going to sign off early, I think. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what I've been doing outside of indietrix, or I suppose sort of as part of the same process, but not really in the same way. I wanted to talk to you briefly about the video essays that I've been doing. I've done a new one for Little White Lies recently that you might have seen. Just as a heads up, I have a video essays playlist on the channel, and I always post video essays that I make, not just for the channel, but for Little White Lies and for other people as well in there. So do keep an eye on that if you want a centralized place to see all my work. I always shout about them on Twitter as well, so you can follow me there at Will Webb. Little plug. And yeah, so I made another introduction to a filmmaker. I made the introduction to Sofia Coppola, who obviously is like a really interesting filmmaker, having a kind of background in slightly nepotistic way, but also having really developed her own voice and having an interesting set of themes and aesthetic devices that she uses recurrently throughout all of her films. I've also done a video essay for the BFI, the British Film Institute, for the first time, which was about Takeshi Kitano's Yakuza films. And in particular, I was talking about Sonatine or Sonatine. I never actually got that exactly right. I think it's an Italian word, but it's a Japanese movie, so who knows. Sonatine is the last in the kind of Yakuza trilogy of Kitano's earliest films, and it's an absolutely fascinating movie, which is well worth giving a look if you like kind of gangster movies. If you are interested in nihilism on screen, it's an extremely nihilistic and determinist kind of movie, if those two things go together. So that's one thing I've been doing for the channel. The other thing that you will have seen is a little bit of diversity of content, partially because of how the reviews are going. There's not that many movies coming out. I'm not sure if you've noticed. There are some coming out, but they're not coming out in cinemas, and it's hard to kind of feel like they're big pop cultural moments. I've reviewed a couple of Netflix pictures, like The Old Guard, things like that, and a couple of things that have been released on demand in the UK. Cinemas have now reopened in the UK, some of them. So as time moves forward, you'll probably see a few more reviews coming from me. But I'm still having an issue with like there not being quite enough big releases, I suppose, to really justify reviews. So I've started making sort of evergreen content. And one aspect of that is these sketches that I've made. One is already up. That's called Scary Covers That Spooked You When You Were a Kid, which is about the iconography of horror films and how that scared children who couldn't watch those films but definitely understood some of the horror and the images on the front covers. And then the other sketch that's coming out soon, I won't spoil it for you, but it's about another informal category by which we view films. So I'm hoping I can release a few more of those. I only have those two pre-shot currently, but I'm hoping I can shoot some more. Got a few more ideas, but there'll be about one a month, fingers crossed. And then I've also got list videos that are going out on the website, on the channel currently. One went out yesterday, which is videos mostly looking at regional, international horror cinemas, and I'm hoping I might be able to do one on sci-fi as well. There's a little bit less selection there. So I've already done one on Canadian horror films, I've done one on Japanese horror films, and then I've got a few more coming up, which if you have any recommendations, do let me know. I was going to skip over American horrors because I think that's maybe a little bit obvious, but I wanted to do one on Korean horrors, one on Spanish horrors, and one on British horrors. So do give me a shout if you have any recommendations for those. And likewise, if there's any other kind of lists that you'd like to see as well. And yeah, basically I'm kind of taking indietrix away from the reviews a bit for a period of time, just because they're harder to do, and making wider content looking at film and how people absorb it, back to the kind of variety stuff. And if you're lucky, if you're good, and if I'm good at editing, then you might even get to see some more Films with Friends episodes coming out at some point in the near future. So that's the work I've been doing for indietrix over the course of the last couple of months during this crazy lockdown time. I've also been making short films. I made a lockdown micro short, which got some interesting views on Reddit. I was front page of Filmmakers Reddit for a day, which was very nice. And I did a lot of effects work on that. So my video there was an effects breakdown. Wow, beer do hit different, huh? So that's pretty much all I have to talk about. If there isn't anyone kind of up for having a chat, then we can call it a night there. Just draw a line underneath this very brief stream. But suffice to say, it's really fun to rewatch these films and have these chats with audiences about this kind of crazy collection of films that I've built up. Films that are wider than most people would watch a lot of the time, but are really important in cinema history, and maybe are, some of them will be less known. I mean, I've chosen some really well-known films so far, but it'd be lovely to do some stuff that not many people have seen, and have a really like chat about that, you know. That was always the aim of indietrix, to increase access to film, to encourage people to engage with movies outside of what they'd normally watch. And that first person to receive that kind of engagement was me, because I set up the channel to force myself to watch stuff that I wouldn't otherwise see. And one of the things that's, you know, as much as doing reviews has been nice and it's brought in more viewers to the channel than I ever thought I'd get, it's nice to go back to those roots and make something that's just about finding great movies and watching those. So if you have any recommendations for the next movie club, then do let me know. It'd be lovely to have that chat with you guys. I'm trying to remember what I've actually streamed on Movie Club so far. We did Mulholland Drive, that was the last one. We did another movie before that. Fuck me if I can remember it. Welcome to Will Webb browses his stream privately. Do. Sorry, I'm just not actually doing anything here. It's me squinting at people. Oh. You'd better not. Actually can't find. I did a load of streams at the start of lockdown. I did like a couple of hour-long streams that I had some guests for as well, which was really nice. I can't actually find my last Movie Club stream. What was it? Does anyone remember? Does anyone know? Oh, and I should say, if you haven't had a chance to watch Night of the Hunter yet, I did just spoil the whole plot of it, but do watch it. It's a really cracking movie. You should definitely get involved. Oh yeah, the one other thing that I haven't talked about in the kind of context of like content that I'm doing on the channel that isn't quite like it used to be. I did. Oh yes, the other one was Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Yeah, that was really fun. Yeah, so I did a series of video essays. I'm trying to put out one video essay on the channel a month. The thing is, they have really long research and turnaround times, so that schedule might slip. I think if anything on that new content schedule slips, it'll be that. With that in mind, I've got a few more. I've got like 2 more lined up, so that's the next couple of months. And I hope you all enjoyed watching Saturday morning blockbusters. My kind of reminiscence about how, as a kid, every blockbuster seemed to have like a Saturday morning cartoon spin-off that came with it, and how some of that stuff was pretty good. I definitely chalk up that video to my interest in film ephemera, stuff like the DVD menus video that I did. But yeah, it was really fun doing that. It was an interesting departure from what I normally do. And I'm looking forward to posting another one, which hopefully will be another kind of like HD remaster of a different video essay, one that I've never posted on the channel before, which is about Howard's End. It's a Merchant Ivory film. James Ivory is the guy who did Call Me By Your Name. He wrote that. And he made a huge amount of heritage films with his producing partner, Ishmael Merchant. Maybe I've screwed up the names. Anyway, they made all these heritage movies, which had people like Helena Bonham Carter and Emma Thompson and Hugh Grant all had their kind of start in those films. So they're quite important in the kind of history of British film in the last 30 years. And Howard's End is a really fascinating movie in terms of how it deals with geography as an identifier of people, I think. It uses places like the novel that it's based on to reflect the identities of the people who inhabit them. And so there's something interesting that it says then about how memory works in the context of like a society, which again is part of the themes of the book that it's based on, but a very interesting kind of thing in its own right. So that'll be coming out end of the month. Don't hold me to it. I haven't done the video yet. Yikes. Oops. Whoops. Oopsie doopsie. Okay. Well, I hope you've enjoyed watching this quick stream here. I'm actually going to wrap it up in a minute. So if you are burning with a question, if you have anything to ask, let me know. Get in the chat, say hi. Let's have a chat. Okay, gang, if we're all sorted there, I'm going to call time on this. Thank you so much for checking in for another movie club. It was Night of the Hunter, and I'll be putting a vote so we can decide as a community what we want to watch next in a community post over the next couple of days. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. Until then, have a good one, and keep watching great movies. See you later. Bye for now.